The internet is a breeding ground for tales that blur the lines between fiction and reality. Among its darkest corners lie creepypasta stories, passed from user to user, growing more sinister with each retelling. From cursed images to faceless figures lurking in the shadows, these stories are designed to disturb and intrigue. So today, prepare yourself as we dive into 8 chilling creepypasta stories that refuse to be forgotten. Are you ready? Let's begin. Stephanie 2 is 2 kilometers from you. To begin with, Stephanie 2 kilometers from you is a story born from online lore and a misinterpretation of a sinister narrative inspired by the creepypasta, the cell phone game. In this disturbing account, a character named Stephanie encounters a deadly challenge hidden behind the guise of a text message. The game is simple in its premise, yet horrifying in its implications. At the stroke of midnight, potential players are instructed to send a text that reads, "I wish for the power to curse." Almost immediately, a reply arrives, "Welcome to the game." But this greeting is not actually the start of the game. It signifies entry into a contract of blood and terror. Once the text is sent and the message received, the participant is bound by the game's cruel rules. They are given a strict deadline of 2 weeks to complete an unspecified task. If they fail, the rules decree a most dire consequence. The individual is dragged away by forces unknown. So despite ominous warnings, Stephanie chose to enter the game. Whether driven by a desperate curiosity or the allure of forbidden power, she sent out the fateful text. For the following 2 weeks, the game's malignant presence hovered over her every day. There was no moment of respite. Every minute bristled with the potential of retribution. As the deadline loomed, subtle but terrible signs began to appear. Then in one heart-stopping moment, Stephanie vanished without a trace. All that remained were the tragic remnants, splatters of blood, and the clear impression that someone or something had dragged her away, leaving behind only a grim silence and unanswered questions. The Amazing World of Gumball, Lost Episode. Next we have The Amazing World of Gumball, Lost Episode, known as The Grieving. It is a fan-made creepypasta that twists a familiar animated universe into an exploration of sorrow and despair. In this dark narrative, the beloved character Gumball is depicted in a state of deep isolation. Alone in a classroom, tears streak down his face as his innocence is overwhelmed by a grief that neither his usual antics nor the bright world around him can dispel. The familiar laughter of school life is replaced by a haunting silence that speaks of irreparable loss. At home, the tragedy deepens. Richard, Gumball's father, is portrayed in a manner that shocks the viewer. Seated silently on the couch and clad in a formal black suit, he first displays a stoic calm before his face twists in overwhelming sorrow and he erupts into uncontrollable sobbing. Soon after, Nicole, Gumball's mother, enters the scene. Dressed in black and marked by an expression of profound weariness, she sits beside Richard. In her sorrowful presence, even her attempts at comforting him are subdued by an inescapable melancholy. The entire family is draped in mourning, their attire and surroundings reflecting an atmosphere of bleak despair. However, the most harrowing moment arrives when outside the family home, an image appears. Gumball's ghostly visage silently watches his bereaved family from beyond the window. This spectral form is a grim symbol of unspoken tragedies, a final reminder that even the most vibrant lives may be shadowed by sorrow. The Russian sleep experiment. Moreover, in the autumn of 1947, deep within a secret Soviet research facility, 5 political prisoners were subjected to an experiment that would eventually become one of the most horrifying legends of modern creepypasta lore. The researchers, in the name of military advancement, decided to test the limits of human endurance by keeping these prisoners awake for 15 consecutive days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. The prisoners were confined in a sealed chamber, their every move monitored through reinforced glass as the scientists recorded their transformation. At the outset, the subjects appeared to adapt well to the stimulant's effects. However, as the days passed, the initial optimism began to dissipate. By the 4th day, their discussions grew increasingly erratic. Sentences began to loop, and thoughts were repeated as if stuck in a mental cycle. When the 10th day arrived, the physical toll of their sleepless ordeal became impossible to ignore. Their skin turned a sickly pale, their movements became twitchy and erratic, and they began rejecting sustenance. On the 12th day, the atmosphere erupted into chaos as unrelenting screams began to shake the sealed room. Blood splattered the walls and the microphones captured animalistic growls. By day 14, an eerie silence filled the chamber, a silence brimming with unspoken terror. The scientists, hesitant and unsure whether to intervene, finally decided to open the chamber on the 15th day. In that moment, chaos broke loose. It was later revealed that the horrible experiment turned the subjects into violent zombie-like creatures who were addicted to the gas. At the end, every character died except one scientist. Why babies are born screaming. Now, the creepypasta Why Babies Are Born Screaming examines a speculative theory that the first cry of a newborn is not merely a reflex, but a profound response to the unbearable burdens of existence that await in the world. A particularly haunting element of the story is the portrayal of a graduate student working within the secret corridors of a neuroscience department. Drawn by a desire to unravel the mysteries of memory and perception, he becomes entangled in an experiment that defies the laws of nature itself. In a dimly lit laboratory overlooking a sprawling cityscape at night, the student is strapped into an examination chair. The researcher, known simply as DV, initiates an unorthodox experiment with a machine that releases a pulsing current. As the machine hums to life, a burning sensation radiates across the student's scalp. In that moment, a scream slices through the silence. A scream not entirely his own, but echoing from deep within his subconscious. Before the student can voice another word, the sound of another scream emerges from somewhere in the halls of the facility. It is a cry that resonates with the same raw intensity as that of a newborn's first terror, a reminder of the harsh reality into which every child is born. Invisible forces constrain him, the restraints tighten, and the world beyond the laboratory window begins to distort. The student finds himself transported to an endless void where the boundaries of reality and nightmare blur. In this spectral realm, he encounters a figure, a man devoid of skin, whose presence seems to embody the ultimate horror of forgotten memories and unspeakable truths. The student is forced to recall a long-buried childhood dream in which this very figure had whispered forbidden words, words too terrible for mortal understanding. However, as swiftly as the nightmare began, the machine is silenced and reality reasserts itself. The restraints vanish, the figure recedes, and the student is left with the lingering echo of a truth he cannot unlearn. This narrative argues that every human is born into a world replete with horror, a world that, from the very first scream, reveals its relentless cruelty. Dear David! Additionally, in 2017, illustrator Adam Ellis took to Twitter to chronicle what he claimed were first-hand encounters with a ghost haunting his apartment. The spirit was a young boy named David, his head misshapen, his presence unsettling. Ellis first saw David in his dreams, where a girl warned him that he could ask the ghost only 2 questions. If he dared to ask a third, David would kill him. Whether by curiosity or accident, Ellis eventually violated the rule. From that moment, strange occurrences began. His cats became fixated on the door at midnight, shadowy figures appeared in photos, and objects in his home moved without explanation. Desperate for relief, Ellis moved to a new apartment, but David wasn't bound to a single location. The eerie disturbances continued, drawing thousands of Twitter followers into the mystery. Some dissected every tweet, every photo, searching for evidence of something supernatural. Others questioned whether the story was an elaborate hoax. The saga continued for months until Ellis abruptly stopped posting updates, leaving the haunting unresolved. Whether real or fabricated, Dear David captivated audiences, eventually inspiring a feature film that brought the horror to the big screen, Smile Dog. Now, while some horrors are written in words, others exist in images. Smile Dog belongs to the latter, spreading terror through a single photo, smile.jpg. At first glance, it appears to be an ordinary photograph of a Siberian husky. But something is wrong. Its mouth stretches unnaturally wide, curled into a grin that seems both human and monstrous. The longer one looks, the more it feels like the creature is peering into their very soul. Those who view the image soon realize its true horror. It is more than pixels on a screen. It is a curse. Victims experience relentless nightmares, plagued by visions of the grinning entity whispering a simple demand: spread the image, share it. Some comply, hoping to rid themselves of the entity's grip. Others resist, only to suffer worsening paranoia and exhaustion. Story claims that defying Smile Dog leads to madness, or worse, an irreversible descent into the abyss. Whether an internet hoax or something far more sinister, Smile Dog remains one of the most infamous digital nightmares, proving that some images carry more than just light and shadow. Momo. Next, in July 2018, a new horror spread across the internet, turning a simple sculpture into one of the most infamous digital stories of the modern era. The tale of Momo began innocently enough, rooted in an unsettling image of a grotesque figure with bulging eyes, a distorted smile, and bird-like legs. The sculpture, titled Motherbird, was crafted by Japanese artist Keisuke Iso, but it was not created with sinister intent. Its horror, however, was soon twisted into something far darker. Stories spread when a YouTube user named Gloomy House posted a video discussing the eerie phenomenon. Allegedly, mysterious phone numbers circulated on WhatsApp, allowing users to contact Momo herself. Those who dared to reach out soon found themselves caught in a nightmare. Reports surfaced that Momo sent terrifying messages, leaked personal information, and even delivered graphic images to unsuspecting victims. Soon, rumors connected Momo to tragic events, including cases of extreme distress and, more disturbingly, fatal consequences. One widely discussed case involved a young boy who reportedly suffered a severe reaction after receiving a series of haunting messages from Momo. His condition worsened, leading to hospitalization and widespread speculation about the entity's power. Another tragic incident claimed that a young girl had taken her own life after interacting with Momo. Hence, fear gripped the internet, turning the mystery into a viral sensation. Parents and officials began issuing warnings about the dangers of unknown online figures, fueling mass panic. As reports grew, digital safety became a priority, and platforms like YouTube took action, restricting and demonetizing content related to Momo. But despite efforts to control the hysteria, the fear remained, embedded deep in the minds of those who had witnessed the unnerving image. Slenderman. And finally, Slenderman was born on the internet in 2009 as part of a creepypasta contest on an online forum. Created by Eric Knudsen, also known as Victor Surge, Slenderman is a tall, humanoid creature in a black or grey suit, red or black tie, and white shirt. His face is completely white and devoid of facial features. He has no hair and generally has normal-looking bare hands, but with fingers longer and bonier than a typical human. According to the story, Slenderman does not rely on force. He lets fear do the work for him. Victims begin losing sleep, plagued by scary visions. Night after night, his presence grows stronger. Exhaustion sets in, paranoia consumes them, reality begins to warp. Moreover, he often stalks targets for years before attacking them. It's understood that he tends to torture his targets mentally over long periods of time, using fear and paranoia to drive them to insanity. But no one has ever satisfactorily explained the reasoning behind his tactics or the way he chooses his victims. Now, which of these creepypasta stories did you like the most? Do you remember getting into any of them back in the day? Please engage down in the comments and stay tuned for part 2.